it looks like the Trump administration just like dead ass doesn't care what the federal courts tell them to do, and like they're like arguing semantics and verbiage, and I'm being dead ass. They're saying that like the word facilitate instead of effectuate, and we're gonna go into the definitions. Long story short, the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that the Trump administration has to bring back this Maryland father that they deported to the El Salvadorian prison camp, and the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 unanimous. They were like, brother, you got to bring this guy back. But because of the word facilitate, they said you got to facilitate the return of this man. The Trump administration is like, oh, okay, so we don't have to bring him back because you said facilitate and not effectuate. I'm dead ass. We're going to cover this real quick, but before we do cover it, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It costs you nothing. Helps me immensely. If you do want to help the channel financially, because this is actual independent media, I've got no funding. I've never had a conversation with an advertiser or a billionaire or, a foreign government. So if you do want to help me out, all you got to do is become a member here for $5, become a patron on Patreon for $5, buy some of this dope-ass Valenti Videos merch down below, or use the 40% off discount on Ground News. Other than that, let's dive right in. So I've got the hill here for you. We got the Supreme Court rules Trump administration must facilitate the return of mistakenly deported man. Now, real quick, if you are watching this recorded on YouTube, you probably just saw the chat pop up. We record these videos live. We're live on YouTube. Everybody in the chat say hi. If you want to make sure that you're here next time I go live, just hit that notification bell. So, Supreme Court rules Trump administration must facilitate return of mistakenly deported man. Let's watch this here.
Whole lot of movement in this case, a lot of back and forth in just the last 48 hours here, and that last minute order coming down from the Chief Justice this afternoon came just a few hours after that appellate court ruling was issued, calling the government's arguments in the case unconscionable. Chief Justice John Roberts pressing pause on a potential return to the U.S. for Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That appellate court ruling upholding that deadline issued this morning, saying in part, the United States government has no legal authority to snatch a person who is lawfully present in the United States off the street and remove him from the country without due process. The government's contention otherwise, and its argument.
Hold on, without due process. So we were talking about this. You've been hearing the Trump administration and like the 22 to 30% of like his followers that are like in a cult. They've been talking about how no due process for undocumented immigrants. Now, a couple of things real quick. All persons within the United States of America are entitled to due process under the law. And the reason is because if an undocumented immigrant isn't entitled to due process, that means you are not entitled to due process. How does that work, Chris? Well, if I accuse you of being a fucking undocumented immigrant and ICE snatches you off the street and you don't happen to have your fucking passport with you, you need the right to go to court, get a lawyer, and prove that you are a fucking U.S. citizen, right? That's what due process is. If the undocumented immigrants don't have due process, that means you don't have due process, because how the fuck are you going to prove that you're not an undocumented immigrant if you don't get to go to court to prove that you... Fuck! Jesus! Shit! All right, let's keep fucking listening to this. Sorry, I just crashed out. I don't even know what happened.
Part, the United States government has no legal authority to snatch a person who is lawfully present in the United States off the street and remove him from the country without due process. The government's contention otherwise, and its argument that federal courts are powerless to intervene, are unconscionable. The Trump administration now pushing the Supreme Court to step in with an emergency appeal, arguing the courts can't force the executive branch to work with Salvadoran officials to bring Abrego Garcia home. The president maintaining his allegations about Abrego Garcia's gang member status last night aboard Air Force One.
Somebody said he's a member of MS-13.
He's not.
De Aragua. He's a member of MS-13.
He's not.
And therefore he should immediately be brought back. Well, MS-13 is just as bad as Tren de Aragua.
The appellate court ruling says Abrego Garcia has never been charged with a crime here or abroad. We also heard from Abrego Garcia's attorney.
Trump just says whatever the fuck he wants, and literally tens of millions of Americans believe it. It doesn't matter what he says. He could say, the moon is made of butter, and they'll go, holy fuck, dude, Trump discovered that the fucking moon is made of butter. Like, dude, dead ass, I swear to fucking Christ, Trump could say, and he might one day, he might say, I had a vision from God, and frankly, he told me, he said, Donald, my sweet, handsome boy, you should rule the United States of America forever. And frankly, I'm not one to challenge God. And these fucking people would praise him. Deadass, they would fucking praise him. Meanwhile, let's double check to see if I've been banned off TikTok yet, because I'm pretending to be a Trump supporter. And these fucking people, they see, oh no, we're still good. They see how fucking stupid I am, or they see how stupid I am, and they're like, go. Bro, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, the 12th Amendment, the 22nd Amendment, they're all gone. We're fucked, chat. Thank you for the $2, Joe Mackey, with the Trump is your daddy. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
On the Chief Justice's order this evening, Simon Sandoval-Mosberg saying, quote, this is a temporary administrative stay. We have full confidence that the Supreme Court will resolve this matter as quickly as possible. That pause from the Chief Justice today, giving the court system a little bit more time to figure out how they would like to proceed. Outside the Supreme Court.
Take my rights, Trump daddy. Take my rights, Daddy Trump. So get this. So, I mean, we could read a little bit of this, but like you got the gist of it, okay? And so the Supreme Court rules on Thursday. They refuse to lift the judge's order. Okay, we're going to read this. Read this with me, then we're going to watch the White House's response. The Supreme Court on Thursday refused to lift a judge's order requiring the Trump administration to facilitate the return of a Maryland man mistakenly deported to El Salvador. The court's emergency ruling instructs the lower judge to clarify the language of her order, but said she acted properly in ensuring that Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case is handled, as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. So listen, you saw the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court rules 9-0 unanimously. They say you got to facilitate the return of this guy, bro. And watch the White House's response.
The Supreme Court made their ruling last night very clear that it's the administration's responsibility to facilitate the return, not to effectuate the return.
You hear that? Let's listen to that one more time.
Responsibility to facilitate the return, not to effectuate the return. I believe the Department of Justice just filed another brief in the lower court. I would defer you to that for any updates. But as you mentioned, President Bukele will be here at the White House on Monday.
Meanwhile, they're bringing fucking Bukele, the goddamn authoritarian ruler of El Salvador, to the White House. I mean, granted, that shouldn't fucking be so crazy considering that we had Benjamin Netanyahu here the other day and he met with fucking Tim Pool. Dead ass, bro. I'm not kidding. Benjamin Netanyahu, who has an ICC warrant for his arrest for war crimes, met with Tim Pool, who was proven to have gotten money from the Russians to make anti-Ukrainian propaganda. What? For those of you driving, no, your audio didn't cut out. I'm just looking at the cameras everywhere because what the fuck?
Lower court, I would defer you to that for any updates. But as you mentioned, President Bukele will be here at the White House on Monday to talk about the cooperation that is at an all-time high. And we very much appreciate President Bukele and El Salvador's cooperation in the repatriation of El Salvadorian gang members who the previous administration allowed to infiltrate our...
Repatriation is the word that they're using instead of deportation because deportation has a really bad ring to it, and a lot of like average Americans, even the ones who voted for Trump, they don't want to say that they support mass deportation. But if you phrase it differently, this is how fucking stupid people are, bro. If you call it repatriation, then they'll, like, so many of them will support it. It's actually fucking lunatic. It's lunatic. Okay, so you saw, she said, the White House has ordered us to facilitate the return Okay? So real quick, for those of us who, don't know the definition, facilitate, definition, to make an action or process easy or easier. Okay? So they're saying, hey, the Supreme Court said this specific word. All we got to do is make it easy or easier for this guy to come home. And she specifically said, not effectuate. Effectuate means to put into force or operation. So, the Supreme Court rules 9-0 unanimously, even fucking Brett Kavanaugh, the alcoholic Supreme... I love beer. They all rule that you have to facilitate the return of this guy. You got to get this guy home. And they start arguing semantics and say, well, they didn't say that we have to effectuate it. They say that we have to facilitate it. Come on. Are we dead ass? Are we dead ass? Bro. Now, meanwhile, this isn't the only fucking person that we're dealing with this similar situation. You guys have watched the other videos. I've talked about Mahmoud Khalil, right? It was a pro-Palestinian protester. He was one of the organizers for the Columbia University protests, right? And he was fucking kidnapped off the street by masked ICE members. Long story short, we're gonna pull up again the Hill. We love the Hill. Immigration judge allows Mahmoud Khalil deportation effort to proceed. A judge in former Columbia University activist Mahmoud Khalil's case ruled against him Friday, finding he is eligible for deportation, while giving his legal team a little less than 2 weeks to respond. Jamie Comins, an immigration judge in Louisiana, found the government's case is facially reasonable. She gave his team until April 23rd to file its response. The government had, quote, established by clear and convincing evidence that he is removable, Comins said, the Associated Press reported. Now we're going to read a pretty large quote here. I would like to quote what you said last time, and there's nothing that's more important to this court than due process rights and fundamental fairness, Khalil said at the end of the hearing. Clearly, what we witnessed today, neither of these principles were present today or in this whole process. This is exactly why the Trump administration has sent me to this court, 1,000 miles away from my family. I just hope that the urgency that you deemed fit for me are afforded to the hundreds of others who have been here without hearing for months. Dude, this motherfucker is so brave for talking his shit even while they've got his ass ready for deportation. The ruling comes after Khalil, the former lead negotiator of the pro-Palestinian encampment at Columbia University, has been in a Louisiana detention center for more than a month after he was arrested on March 8th. The fight to bring Mahmoud home is far from over, Noor Zafar, senior staff attorney with the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project, said in a statement, quote, we will continue undeterred to press for his release after the startling escalation of the Trump administration's war on dissent. We will fiercely defend his and others' right to speak freely about Palestine or any other issue without fear of detention or deportation. So, guys, what you're seeing right now, the most basic way to put this is this. Mahmoud Khalil, pro-Palestinian protester, anti-Israeli genocide. He's never committed a fucking crime, and the Justice Department hasn't even charged him with committing a crime. In fact, the White House came out and told the Free Press that he has not committed a crime, and that's not what they're accusing him of. What they're accusing him of is being a threat to America's national security by organizing a pro-Palestinian protest. Now, here's the thing. He's not a U.S. citizen. He was a permanent legal resident. Now, the thing is, if you are a permanent legal resident, you don't have the exact same rights. And as we can see, immigration judges can do things like deport you for, I guess, fucking protesting. But what this means is that the only reason you could protest all you want, unless you are protesting against the American Defense Department's initiatives, right? America is, at least the government, is very clearly on the side of Israel. I mean, Trump fucking met with Netanyahu, what was it, yesterday or 2 days ago? Regardless, the American government is clearly on the side of Israel. And as they're saying in this article, if you do not support the American State Department's imperialist actions overseas, then you are guilty of dissent, right? Now, this is straight up fascist shit, okay? And at the same time, if you watched my previous video, if you haven't, go check that out, Caroline Leavitt came out and said that Trump is considering deporting U.S. citizens, right? So this is, they always talk about a slippery slope. I always talk about a slippery slope. You are seeing the slope. It started off with Trump saying we're going to deport all the illegal aliens. Now it's we're going to deport permanent legal residents because they don't support Israel. And now we're moving into Trump saying himself, I would consider deporting U.S. citizens. It's going to reach the point, at this rate, it will reach the point when Trump eventually just labels anybody who doesn't support him as anti-American, a dissident of the Führer. This is the world that you are moving into. This is a nightmare. This is a nightmare. It's an absolute fucking nightmare. And I also just wanted to point out one thing, same story, but Fox's coverage. Fox doesn't even call this guy like a pro-Hamas guy. They don't even call him a pro-Palestinian protester. They are so coddling the fucking nuts of Israel that they just label him as an anti-Israel protester. Now he is. He was definitely anti-Israel, but I would call that anti-genocide, right? Regardless. And now one last story that we want to talk about before I wrap this video up is the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act passed in the House. Now, it still does need to be passed by the Senate, which, who knows? I mean, like, maybe it won't pass. Granted, I don't have much faith in American politicians anymore. I know I've been a little bit quiet. Sorry about it. But I don't have much faith in American politicians. But regardless, let's pull it up from the Associated Press, which Trump has banned from the White House because he's attacking the First Amendment. How the House's requirement to prove U.S. citizenship could affect the ability to register to vote. So the House passed the SAVE Act, and the SAVE Act is saying that you have to have proof of U.S. citizenship in order to vote. And we just covered this live a little bit earlier. I know that at first glance, you're like, oh, that's fine. I have a driver's license. Your driver's license is not proof of citizenship. That's simply fact. Facts don't care about your feelings. A driver's license is not proof of citizenship. So if you watching this, whether you voted for Trump or voted for Kamala or didn't vote or voted for the Green Party, it doesn't matter. If you are a U.S. citizen and you do not have a passport, you can't vote. If this passes, if the GOP passes the SAVE Act, you will not be able to vote. And then what will you have to do? You will have to get a passport. Well, how much does a passport cost? Well, it costs $130 for an adult, right? Plus, there's additional fees, and those additional fees round up to, it's $165 for an adult, and then it rounds up to $200 because of these additional fees that have to be added on top of it. Unless you want expedited shipping, then it'll be more than $200. And then on top of that, you're going to have to wait 6 to 8 weeks to receive your passport. And I understand, I know Trump supporters don't, that there are literally tens of millions of Americans who have to choose between buying groceries or paying the fucking rent each month. I know, we're fucking struggling. The stock market's in shambles, the economy is shit, the minimum wage hasn't been fucking increased since 2009, we're in a housing crisis. I understand these things, but conservatives don't give a fuck. They just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, fucking pussy. That's what they would tell you. That's not what I would tell you. But regardless, a lot of people do not have the money nor the time to get a fucking U.S. passport. And regardless, people aren't going to give a fuck because the entire point of this is to make as few people as possible able to vote. Because conservatives know the more people that vote, the harder it is for them to win elections. That's like, the GOP has stated that. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, one of the founders of the GOP, I'll try to find a video of this in the future. One of the founders of the GOP said, I don't want everybody to vote. If everybody in this nation voted, we would never win again. And they're right. They are right. Anyway, let's read a little bit of this. Associated Press. The U.S. House on Thursday approved legislation requiring documentary proof of U.S. citizenship for anyone registering to vote, something voting rights groups have warned could disenfranchise millions of Americans. The requirement has been a top election-related priority for President Donald Trump and House Republicans, who argued it's needed to eliminate instances of non-citizen voting, which is already rare and, as numerous states' cases have shown, is typically a mistake rather than part of a coordinated attempt to subvert an election. Never once in American history has voter fraud even minusculely, whatever the fuck the word is, even slightly affected a election. Because you need to register to vote, you need to have like a match signature, you need to have an address on file. And plus, if an undocumented immigrant tried to vote, that would be like shining a fucking light on you when the government already doesn't want you here. It's fucking ridiculous. Even the Heritage Foundation, who I believe wrote Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation only found something like 22 cases of voter fraud since the year 2000 to 2024. So, don't bring it up with me, bring it up with them. Anyways. The requirement has been, we already got there, it's typically a mistake rather than part of a coordinated attempt to subvert an election. It's already been illegal under federal law for people who are not U.S. citizens to cast ballots and can lead to felony charges and deportation. Exactly. If a fucking undocumented immigrant tried to do this, they would get deported. The bill, known as the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or the SAVE Act, now heads to the Senate, where its fate is uncertain because Republicans don't have a large enough majority to avoid a filibuster. Here's a look at the key issues in the debate over proof of citizenship requirement for voting. So, who would be affected if the bill becomes law? If it eventually becomes law, the SAVE Act would take effect immediately and apply to all voter registration applications. This has no impact on individuals who are currently registered to vote. Voting rights groups say that there is more to the story. The law would affect voters who already registered if they move, change their name, or otherwise need to update their registration. That was acknowledged to some extent by the bill's author, Republican Representative Chip Roy of Texas, during a recent hearing on the legislation. The idea here is that for individuals to be able to continue to vote if they are registered, Roy said. If they have an intervening event, or if the states want to clean the rolls, people would come forward to register to demonstrate their citizenship, so we could convert our system over some reasonable time to a citizenship-based registration system. Now, here we go. Oh, you guys hear my tummy rumbling? What documents would be required to register? The SAVE Act compels states to reject any voter registration application in which the applicant has not presented documentary proof of United States citizenship. Now, this is important, guys. Pay attention. Texan here, your accent is terrible. Fuck you. So, among the acceptable documents for demonstrating proof of citizenship are a real ID compliant driver's license that indicates the applicant is a citizen. So I don't know what the fuck a real ID is. I have a driver's license. I don't know if all of those are considered real IDs. A valid U.S. passport. Many people don't have those. A military ID. Obviously, anybody who's not fucking in the military doesn't have a military ID. A valid government-issued photo ID that shows the applicant's birthplace was in the U.S. Okay, so that's, again, driver's licenses don't have your fucking birthplace. A valid government-issued photo ID presented with a document such as a certified birth certificate that shows the birthplace was in the U.S. Here's the thing. If you're a married woman and you took your husband's last name, your name is different than the name on the birth certificate, so that will not count because it has to match. So Republicans are trying desperately to make everything harder and harder and harder to vote because they want less and less people to vote. We all have birth certificates, yes, but women who get married don't have matching names. What if my driver's license doesn't list my birthplace or indicate that I'm a U.S. citizen? In general, driver's licenses do not list a birthplace or indicate that the card holder is a citizen, even many that are Real ID compliant. Yeah, okay, so you guys see the point. The whole point is to make it harder and harder to vote so that it's easier for the Republicans to win in midterm elections and then possibly Trump's 2028 campaign. It's absolutely absurd. So we covered a lot in today's video. If you are watching this live, you stay here. We're going to keep this going for a little bit. If you watch this pre-recorded, thank you so much for tuning into the Valenti Vod. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It costs you nothing, and it helps me immensely. If you do want to help me financially, because this is real independent media, I've never had a conversation with an advertiser or a billionaire or a government. If you do want to help me out, there's a couple of ways you could do it. You could become a patron on Patreon for $5. You'll get access to those Patreon-only videos. You could become a member here on YouTube for $5. Get early access to a whole bunch of videos. You could also use the 40% off discount for the Vantage subscription on Ground News down in the description below. And you can buy some of this dope-ass Valenti Videos merch down below. So anyway, if you're here in the live, you stay. If you are not, have a good one. Thank you for tuning in. I will catch you tomorrow for Rabbit Hole. Saturday is Rabbit Hole, and we've got a good rabbit hole for you. Have a good one.